In this section, we'll be creating the pedestal for our statue. To do this, we'll use a couple of primitives, mostly the box primitive. We'll adjust its dimensions before we even place it. And then we'll use the combine tool to put all the boxes together as one solid. And then we'll add chamfers and other modifying tools to make it look more like a pedestal. After we finish with our pedestal, we'll also import a boat from the 123D gallery. I'll show you a couple of things you might want to look out for, and a couple of tips and tricks when it comes to coloring and moving it around. We'll make our pedestal in 3 parts. Each part will be made from a box. To create a box, we'll just use a primitive. So I'll go up, grab the box from the primitive tab, and now before I place it by clicking, what I'll do is I'll type in dimensions. You might have to hit tab to change to the dimensions or to the next dimension, but you can go ahead and push tab, and then I'll type in 125 millimeters, and I'll push tab, and then I'll edit our height to only 5 millimeters. Then I can either click or push enter. I'll just go ahead and click, and then I'll create the box in the spot I clicked. I'll just go ahead and move this box down beneath the ground plane. This will become the top of our pedestal. Now I want to add another box onto the bottom of our current pedestal. So I'll select the box from the primitive tab, and I'll put my cursor close to the center, and then I'll begin typing in my dimensions. I'll make it 5 millimeters smaller, so I'll type in length only 15. I'll type in 125 for my width, just so I can center it about right. Notice that the box will snap to the center of the other box. Then I'll only make it 120 millimeters, and I'll leave the height at 20. I'll click, and it'll make it right where it snapped to, which would be the center of the last one. So that's perfect. I'll do this again with a third box. I'll select the box from the primitive tab. I'll move it towards the middle of the last box. It'll snap into place, and I'll type in my dimensions. So I'll make it 25 by 130. And then I'll make it less tall. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Then I'll click, and I'll create it. Our 3 separate boxes are stacked on top of each other now. Keep in mind, they are still individual components. For example, if I wanted to add a chamfer between the top box and the middle box, it would only chamfer the top of the middle box. This is why we need to use the combine tool to make these boxes part of the same solid. To use the combine tool, we first select it from the top toolbar. Then we will select our first solid we wish everything to be combined with. Next, we select what is referred to as the source solids. These will be the solids that we'll be adding to the first solid. I'll also make sure to make it selected on join, and then I'll push enter, and that'll combine them all together. Now we can begin adding chamfers and other modifying tools to our pedestal. To do this, under the Modify tab, we'll select Chamfer. And then we click on the edges that we want to add a chamfer to. I'll just click on these ones between the top of our pedestal and the middle part. Now we can drag this arrow in or out to increase or decrease the chamfer. I'll just push enter to apply the chamfer then. I'll add another series of chamfers also to the bottom of our pedestal to make it look more realistic. Alright, next step will be to add the boat that'll represent Columbus's ship. I'll choose Insert from the main menu, and then I'll select from the gallery, and let's do a search for ship. So it only gave me a couple of results, so I'll switch it over to popular opposed to featured. This way it'll show me just about everything. I'll scroll through until I see something that looks kinda like a galleon or something from that era. This one looks okay. Alrighty, so now it's loaded the model. I can move it around with my cursor right now, so I'll just go ahead and move it behind our monument so it doesn't collide with it. I'll click to place it. Next, I'll delete a couple of the features on this boat that I don't really think we need. For instance, the cannons. I'll do this just by clicking on it and then pushing delete on my keyboard. Let's add some colors to our boat now. To do this, we'll select the material library from the material option button on the top of our screen. And then we'll select the object we wish to color. I'll select one of the sails. And then I'll just color it kind of this white plastic. To color the other sail, all I have to do is click on it and it'll apply the current color I have selected, thus making it white. That looks okay. Next, I'll select the boat. While we still have the window open, it'll color the boat a different color, but that's okay because I'm about to change it. I'll select wood and it'll apply a color overlay to it that's pretty dark, so that way the wood looks nice and rich, kind of like one of these boats should. If we tried moving our boat right now, it would just come apart literally in different pieces. That's because they're not grouped together. Let's group them. To do this, we'll select the Group tool under the Grouping tab, and then we'll select each part of our boat, and then we'll push Enter. This will group all the parts together so they'll act as one whole piece. Notice this is different from Combine though, because if we combine them all, we can have individual parts colored differently. So now when I select it, I can use the Move tool to move our entire ship at once, which is very handy. Before we move our boat into place, I'm going to use the Scale tool on it, which is also under the Transform tab, to change the scale to about 15% of what it originally was. So I'll just type in 0.15. That looks pretty small, and then I'll push Enter, and then I'll make it that small. Next, you'll want to highlight the boat again, and then click on the Move tool. Now we can maneuver the boat into place on top of our monument. I'll also add a little angle to it to make it look like it's kind of riding on top. In the next section, I'll be adding some texture to it and then some supports to our monument to make it look more realistic.